Hi, my name's Rob Ryder, speaking out of West Cornwall, and I'm here again tonight with Patrick Quanton from Andalusia in Spain. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, Rob. Good evening.
Yeah, so we've come a long way so far in this series of conversations, and this is one that I've been really interested in tonight. But you wanted to build the foundation before we started talking about this, and it's basically the focus of these conversations is to observe the physical entities in life, the body, etc., but to try and see where that's coming from, what you say, the energetic aspect of life. And that's been the focus. And we're trying to build up to that. I think last week kind of put everything together, because when we're talking about a life balance, we're talking about the inner individual, not just the outer world, but that relationship and the inner person, the inner energetic person, shall we say. And that life balance isn't fixed because we have stages in life. And apart from them stages, we have moments in life where we might have inspiration. Previous belief systems might need to be not useful anymore. So that balance of life is changing. So we've kind of built up now to make people see that really we need to focus on the energetic aspect of life, or what people might say mind over matter. So we're going to look at that tonight. I'm not sure how this is going to be. This should be quite interesting. So there's things like, what is this energy we're talking about? What is the mind? Where do our thoughts come from that seem to dictate our perceptions in our life? So I'm just going to really let you get on with it and see what observations I make of this tonight. So I'll leave it with you for now.
Okay. So indeed, you said mind over matter. Well, if energy creates or possibly creates matter, so matter comes at the end of the process, not the beginning of the process. Our bodies is matter. So what comes before that is our mind. So the mind is more important as far as life is concerned, and the body is just a vehicle, it's just the expression of. So we need to look at mind, because health is balance in life. And so, yes, you look at your body and the balance of your body, but that is an expression of the balance of your mind. So we need to know what we're talking about when we talk about mind. What do we mean by that? How can we describe it and link it in with the energetic systems that we know of? So let's define it, because when we talk about mind, we basically look at an unconscious mind and a conscious mind. And in order to overcome the confusion that that we find amongst the population and people talking about mind, let's try and define it and see how far that gets us. So unconscious is defined as not awake, not aware, or without any realization. Right. So that means conscious is being awake, aware, and being able to realize your surroundings, what is happening. But what is that awareness? Well, awareness is defined as a knowledge or a perception of a situation. A knowledge or a perception of a situation. And the realization is defined as being conscious. So, okay, what is conscious? Conscious is being aware and responding to the surroundings, have knowledge of something. Knowledge, again, knowledge, and responding to the surroundings. Now, when we look at the definition of unconscious, not awake, not aware, no realization, then you get the impression that the opposite, conscious, being awake and aware, is what rules life. But that is not the case. And the definitions don't actually cover the cargo. Why? When you're not awake, so in the definition you're unconscious, your system is still aware of your surroundings. If you doubt that for yourself, have a look at your cat or your dog. You know, they can be fast asleep, but they know exactly what's happening to them. You can't surprise them. You know, you can't, because they're awake. They're aware, I should say. They're not awake, they're asleep. They're unconscious per definition, but they're aware. Medical profession also tells us that people in coma, they're certainly unconscious, that they're still aware. And the medical profession and nursing staff and so on will encourage you to touch them, to speak to them, you know, because they can hear you. Well, not in the sense that their ears are picking up the sound and their brain is processing the sound and they know what you're saying. No, they don't know. So there's no knowledge about it, but there is an awareness. So the definition of unconscious and conscious in terms of awareness and being awake or not awake is not actually getting us anywhere. And yet the two are part of our life. Part of our life we spend being conscious, and part of our life we spend being unconscious, not awake. So what is this? Well, imagine the two parts, because they're two parts of one whole. The unconscious you can see as the atmosphere, and the conscious is the body, the atmosphere and the earth, the physical solid form of the earth, the physical solid form of the body. And around that is something that is not physical, not material. It's like an atmosphere. It's there. But those are the two parts. And what is important is, well, the two things that are important. One is that life is governed, it starts off and it continues being governed by the unconscious mind. It's because when we get conception, or our embryonic life, or our fetal life, or our baby life, we're not conscious. It all starts in an unconscious way, and it's the unconscious that leads our lives. And the other point is that the consciousness, the consequence of that, the consciousness comes later on in life, as it does in evolution. It happens much later in evolution. You can't, or it's difficult to argue that a jelly is conscious, you know, yet it is aware of its surroundings. Two different things, the awareness and consciousness. So the definition doesn't hold water. It doesn't get us anywhere that way. So the unconscious mind creates life and it regulates it. Yeah. The conscious mind is about knowledge about life, about the situation. So it has much more, the conscious mind has much more to do with logic, with thinking, but also being aware of feelings. So awareness in that sense is part of the conscious mind, but it's also part of the unconscious mind. So I have two different types of awareness. The conscious mind relates to the physical part, the atmosphere and the body. The conscious mind relates, is linked in, is fixed into the body part of the person. The unconscious mind is bigger and is not so solid, if you like. It's much more fluid. So with the conscious mind, what a person thinks or feels about something, is conscious of something, is aware of something, then that leads to knowledge. Why? Because he remembers. It is recorded. So whatever he thinks, whatever he feels is recorded, and he can remain aware of that recorded event, situation, feeling, thought. The unconscious mind relates directly to its environment and doesn't need to have the awareness of the body. So you don't have to be awake. You don't have to realize what is happening. Your unconscious mind relates directly, not needing the body, not needing the material stuff, to the environment. That leads to direct experiences, right? Those direct experiences are fed back into the unconscious mind. In other words, just as the conscious mind, the unconscious mind takes notice of the effect that it has when it's confronted with the environment. And it learns. If it didn't, then a baby and a small child could never learn anything. But they do learn. They learn not to touch things that are hot. They learn to stay away from dogs that might bite you. They learn not to eat stuff that is making them feel bad. They also learn what their parents want them to do. And I was going to say what their parents want them to be. So they learn via the feedback they get from the experience. The unconscious mind touches the environment, gets a response, takes note of that response, and records it. The difference is that we don't know. So there is no conscious knowledge about the learning process of the unconscious mind. There is, in fact, no conscious knowledge about anything that happens within the unconscious mind. So that way, the individual, the mind, the unconscious mind of that individual evolves. It learns things, and it learns things about the environment and its relationship to the environment. The conscious mind also learns. And it's the same process with one exception, and that is knowledge. So, again, from the unconscious mind, how does this express itself? It expresses itself, or it expresses the confrontation with the environment, wider environment. It expresses itself through a feeling. That's the first thing, which is non-material. It's not solid. It doesn't have any real structure to it, any material structure to it. That feeling, or those feelings, create thought. Thought is constructed out of words and sentences with a meaning that we have attached to it. So the feelings create thoughts, and those thoughts lead our actions. That's the path of expression of our conscious mind, of our unconscious mind. And where does that come from? We call it intuition, because we weren't aware of the relationship or the conflict between the inner self, unconscious inner self, meeting the environment. So we weren't aware of that, but it creates feelings. Then we have thoughts about it, and we slightly become aware of those thoughts, and it leads us to actions. And sometimes we do things and people say to us, why the hell did you do that? And you go, I don't know. I just thought it might be a good idea. I felt it was the right thing to do. Those are our answers. Intuition, that is the source within the unconscious mind that makes us do things and that regulates our lives. Our conscious mind also creates feelings, and those feelings lead to thoughts, and those thoughts govern our actions. But there is a difference, and that is the source of those feelings, because our conscious mind is built on knowledge. Yeah, knowledge, and the knowledge is the recording of what you have become aware of and remember. And yes, you may forget it for a while, but it can be brought back to the surface into your conscious mind, or rather to the surface of your conscious mind. So from what is written there, from the recording there, your conscious mind can create feelings and thoughts, and those lead to actions. But those feelings that it creates, they are built on our previous conscious recorded awareness, experiences, which means that is one way of learning, which means that what you have experienced yourself and you've been aware of that whole experience, you've recorded it, or you've recorded the main points for you, and you remember them. That is, I know. People say, I know what you're going through because I've went through something similar. Indeed, you may have had a similar experience, but the truth is you don't know what it means to the other person, because you each record it in a different way. So the difference between the feelings and the thoughts that come from the unconscious mind and from the conscious mind is that one is intuition, comes from intuition. We have no idea where that comes from. The other one, we know. I've experienced something like that. I was never treated properly, so now I'm not treating somebody else properly, or I think it's all right not to treat somebody else not properly. So that is where the confusion comes in. And people very often think that if they follow or they link their actions and they support or they give reasons for their actions and express them as feelings, that it's okay, because that's the right thing to do for myself, for my inner self, because it's a feeling. No, the feeling can also come from your conscious learning process, from what you know in your life to be true. It doesn't have to come necessarily from intuition. So that is something that we have to become very aware of if we want to lead a more natural life and not to get confused and pushed out of our path or by interference. We need to become aware of where we attach reason to our actions, because when we do that, no matter what form that takes, it comes from our conscious mind. And our conscious mind is very limited in what it knows. Your unconscious mind. What does your unconscious mind know? Your unconscious mind knows what it means to be a human being, because your unconscious mind is part of the energy field of humanity. More so, your unconscious mind is part of the energy field of a specific part of humanity. In other words, specific race. More so, it is also part, or within that, it's part of the energy field of a particular family. The surroundings, the environment that the family lives in, you know, whether it's up in the mountains, whether it's a city, whether it's the seaside, whether it's a dry climate, whether it's a cold climate, all those things, that kind of knowledge, if you like, is written down in the unconscious mind. And that is expressed into one physical life through your DNA and the fetal learning process. So whatever you can pick up as a fetus from your mother about the outside world of that mother. So the world that you, as a new individual, are going to enter. That knowledge written down, and you continue learning throughout your baby time and your toddler time, just like a sponge. You know, you soak everything up. It's a direct communication way, and your unconscious mind, because as a 2-year-old, you don't remember the exact circumstances of whatever happened and related to. So it's not written down in your conscious mind. It's written down in your unconscious mind. But that is all information of the basic needs for your life to continue. You need to know the world that you're entering into. From the bigger world, humanity, what's the stage of development and evolution that humanity is at the moment that you will be born. Then you've got the cultural thing of particular race that you're in, and so on and so forth. What kind of family do you enter? Is it a doctor's family, a lawyer's family, a coal miner's family? You know, all that information you already have, and it's part of your basic structure that will keep you alive. It will protect you against anything that it is deemed to be a danger for that life. Yeah, nothing to do with consciousness. So that individual life is organized by its specific unconscious mind. And that creates reaction patterns, which you're then going to try out as a child, teenager, young adult, and so on, to get, or in a form of direct expressions. You know, you use that reaction pattern, you get a feeling, a thought, and you act on that. And it comes from that inner self. Call it intuition. Now, that for each individual, if you like, is a new reaction pattern. They're never the same. They're never the same. Each life has got its own reactive pattern because it's got its own unconscious mind. And they're expressed in the way that everything is expressed in the universe. Only 3 ways, from light to heavy. From the heaviest is the most dense form, and the 2 steps above that, and it condenses into the physical part of life, so our body and our physical world. Feelings, thoughts, actions. Feelings is the gas form. It's the way, it's the lightest, the most fluidy things. It comes very quickly, it goes very quickly, it can change very quickly. Thoughts is the liquid form. It's much more solid. It has form, but it can still change. Actions is a solid form. Once you've done an action, you can't undo it anymore. That's what it is. It's there. It's physical. It's complete solid matter. So the conscious mind uses the same pathway. The difference is that you are aware of it, and if you carefully look at your actions, what was causing my actions? Oh, those kind of thoughts. What was causing those kind of thoughts? Oh, my feelings about certain things. And where did these come from? Oh, from my previous experiences that I remember. That's your conscious mind. So now you have a similar pattern, a similar pathway of how to get to your actions, but this is steered from your conscious mind. Remember, your conscious mind is not as wise about life and nature as your unconscious mind is. Not at all. You know, although it uses the same pathways. Everything in the universe, all the same stuff. You know, there's no exceptions, all the same things. But, and here is a crucial bit. When we express an opinion has a logic to it. That means it comes from solid knowledge. That means it comes from your conscious mind. That means it has been created by whatever has formed your conscious mind. And what is that? 2 things. 1, your own personal experiences that you remember, that you've registered, so you know the logic and you know the connection between the experience and what has caused it, and you write that down. And 2, you copy what somebody else has experienced or tells you, and you use that as an argument. That becomes an opinion. An unconscious mind doesn't have an opinion. It never expresses an opinion. More so, it never expresses a belief. Your unconscious mind doesn't believe in God. It doesn't believe in love. It doesn't believe in justice. Your unconscious mind just lives in relation to the circumstances and its environment. So our beliefs and our opinions are formed by the society around us, the people around us, school, church, parents, family, friends, whatever, and my own personal experiences. Those 2 form our opinions and our beliefs, and therefore they are not part of the natural pathway of your system. So your inner self, if you like, your deeper self, your unconscious self, doesn't give a damn about what you believe or what your opinion is or why it is more logical to do this or that. Only thing it does is trying things out and responding to it and learning from the effect that it creates in its outer world. And from that, it can readjust its reaction patterns. If you allow it to, if you don't override it with your conscious mind. In the conscious mind, there is a belief that we have a free will. But if the unconscious mind is creating life and is organizing life, without it, there would be no life at all. In the unconscious mind, there is no free will, because as an ego, as an individual, as a person, I cannot command my unconscious mind to do what I want it to do. So the free will is in effect a multiple choice question from society. You have a choice between this, this, and this. That's it. You choose. You're free to choose. But the reality of life is that in an unconscious manner, it follows a path. And it's set out, that path is set out by the unconscious mind. It follows a predetermined path because it was there at the point of creation of that person. But before that person became a body and a physical matter, it was an unconscious mind of a particular nature. So that is the path, or that is the beginning of the path set out by that unconscious mind that creates and organizes that particular life. And in that life, small bit of that life is a physical body with a conscious mind attached to it. But the unconscious mind has no opinion, has no belief, has no free will. And I think those are the trying to, unwrap the confusion between consciousness, unconsciousness, conscious mind, unconscious mind, and the confusion that people have of these definitions and of how it works. So hopefully we've been able to clarify that a little bit. If not, then, let's throw a few questions at it and see where we get to that.
So obviously that's quite a big subject that you've tried your best there to simplify, because it is an enormous subject, and you rightly mentioned there there is a lot of confusion when people talk about the mind. They don't really specifically define what they talk, what is consciousness, what is unconsciousness. So I've got a few observations that could dig a bit more, and we'll just see how we get on. So you mentioned that when people are in a coma, they're not conscious, but they have a level of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you mentioned last week that at death, it's the death of the ego and the conscious mind, because as you've said tonight, the body is a vehicle for the unconscious mind, or for the bigger energy field, to experience this reality in this physical world. So it seems like, well, just to confirm the first part of this question, then very quickly, it seems like the body is a physical vehicle, and we have our sensory system to perceive the environment, and that gets processed in the brain. And then the mind is not necessarily in the brain, but working through the brain to get to know this reality. So this body and brain and senses is a sensory system to know this physical world. Is that a good example, or?
Yeah, but it helps me because I can link it to something else. Every living organism has an awareness of its environment. It responds to its environment. Yeah, bacteria will move away from danger, will move away from poison, and will move towards food. Every cell of our body has got millions of antennae sticking out, picking up frequencies. All those cells together give or hold for information about frequencies in the outside world, or the frequencies of the outside world. That is our unconscious mind, or that is an expression of our unconscious mind, if you like. Our conscious mind needs a brain development whereby I can physically, if you like, record my experience and the analysis of that experience. So the two different things, the conscious mind comes later in the development of each individual, as well as it did in evolution, because it's a much more physical thing than the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is not physical. It's atmosphere, it's air, it's space, if you like. Nothing but frequencies, and it's through the frequencies that we recognize things, but we're not conscious of it. Yeah, we cannot be conscious of it because we haven't got any senses to record, to notice the frequencies. What we have on a physical level is senses that connect our inner physical system, our brain, to the outside world. And through those senses, we can have an impression of the experiences that we're having. And it's that impression that we note down. And because it's, if you like, written down in stone, you can recall it. Yeah. But you only recall it the way that you've written it down. And that is why if you ask several people who were at a certain event or a certain situation at the same time, watching the same thing, then you get different versions. No? And they're all telling the truth. My father was a police inspector, and he said the worst thing that happened when there was a crime committed, the worst thing in his mind that could happen to him was that there were eyewitnesses. Because he said you get so many different versions and you have to try to make sense of all of them. Because these people have seen or heard what they've heard, but it's all interpretation. Or it's the angle of. So it's through those senses that we meet our physical world. But the unconscious mind meets a lot more than the physical world. It meets the frequencies, the energies that are creating that physical world. So it's at a much higher level, much more basic level.
Yeah, so the conscious mind then is dealing more, like you said, with translating the physical reality. The unconscious mind is aware of a lot more, but we're talking about frequencies.
Yeah.
But it still has an awareness then, if it's dealing in frequencies. It's still, like you mentioned, the person in a coma is an awareness without the consciousness, if you like.
It's an awareness of your unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is aware of its experiences and the effects of its experiences, or of its influence of what it sends out. I'm not saying deeds, but what it sends out. So it's aware of that. The unconscious mind is aware of that. But we, with our conscious mind, don't have the awareness to dive into our unconscious mind and see why that is, what is recorded there. So you can have a sense of incoming danger. And you look around and you listen and you watch and you feel and you think about it, you make some logical analysis, and you can't identify the danger. And yet you have a sense of incoming danger. That sense is a feeling that's created and sent out by your unconscious mind. Your conscious mind doesn't know what it's about. It can't make any contact with it whatsoever. So that's the difference between feelings created in the unconscious mind and feelings created in the conscious mind. The feelings that come from the conscious mind, that begin their life at the conscious level, they have a reason. There is something behind it. You know? Somebody killed somebody else. Why? Well, you know, we can create a whole story around that. There is no way that happens just at an unconscious level. You know, even when people say he didn't know what he was doing, no, that may be correct. But his actions are still logical if you know all the elements, and they come from his conscious experiences.
Yeah, so I know in the military, they actually train soldiers to heighten that sense of being watched. So they'll get somebody, I think they'll get somebody, and they'll get somebody creeping from behind. So that you're saying there, that comes from the unconscious mind.
Yeah.
Because they're not looking around for an enemy. They try and train these soldiers to get in touch with this sense of awareness of a threat physically can't see in the conscious mind. Is that a similar thing you're talking about?
Yes, but just to simplify things, you don't need to train that. Your unconscious mind already knows what to do, how to do it. It's perfect at what it's doing. the reason and the only reason why most of us have got such little connection with the effects of our conscious mind of our unconscious mind is because we are stuck in our conscious mind. We use our conscious mind, we don't look beyond it, and we keep following our conscious mind, which gets in the way of the signals that are coming from much deeper, that are out in the atmosphere and haven't reached the ground yet. So, if you want to become more aware of your nature, your true nature, of your unconscious mind, the only thing you need to know and the only thing you need to do is to get your conscious mind out of the way. So you push it aside. You don't listen to it. You don't try to analyze it. You don't take in any of your information from your senses. You just sit, be quiet, and watch what comes up. And not what has been created. No, what comes up naturally from inside. So the training is to push your conscious mind out of the way. And that goes for all of us. We can all do that. Stop thinking. Stop believing what you believe in. Stop having an opinion about it. Stop judging things. All of those things, all those actions of your conscious mind. Try and push them aside. Ignore them, and they will get silenced after a while. You know, it takes a while, but it's not difficult to train. It's just a matter of persistence. Keep pushing it aside, keep ignoring it, and the loudness will go away. It will still be there, but not so that it's overshouting everything else.
So I know in your article on fasting on the Quantix site, I know the idea of fasting is not just a physical thing. It's to actually, you have to cut yourself off from your daily life, the internet, your social media, your work stress, to try and reduce the input into the conscious mind and just let it be, so that this information from the unconscious comes to the surface of the conscious mind. Yeah. Rather than you diving in, looking for something, you allow it to surface up. And that's the main practice of fasting is for that reason. It's not really just the physical thing is the benefits of it, but what you're really trying to get into is that deeper understanding of yourself.
Yeah, and not a conscious understanding, as in understanding with my conscious mind. Just having a sense of understanding. And of course, it's also the core of natural healing. What happens is we say, don't interfere, leave nature to do its own thing. And then people go, oh, but I'm getting this pain on top of it, or I'm getting that feeling on top of it, or now I'm getting diarrhea. That can't be right. There must be something wrong with my guts or my hormones or my whatever it is. You're thinking again. Those thoughts come from two sources. One, your own experiences, and when we're talking about hormones and the effect of hormones, and never your own experiences, because you've never met any of your hormones yet. You can't be conscious of it. So it's a second one, which is somebody told you and you believe it. If you want to know what nature thinks of it, what nature would do with it, stop thinking, go and lie down, wait, and you can then experience the real healing process.
Yeah, so you mentioned there about free will. So if our actions are just automated responses, now some of these responses are in your genes. You were conceived that way and that information come together, and we go back to conception, the video on conception, then if we go back to the video on the formation of a human being, so you got like the nature and the nurture, how some of these programs are created via the mother. Now, all these programs are so we can survive in the natural world, because we can't think every time we have to do something. It'd be impossible. We just wouldn't survive 5 minutes. But as life changes, the environment's dynamic, human beings are evolving. Sometimes these ingrained programs aren't necessarily serving us as we would like anymore. And so if we haven't got free will, is the idea that you become conscious of the reaction in the environment of these program responses. You look at them and say, that response isn't serving me anymore. So I haven't got free will, but I think it was Rupert Sheldrake or somebody said we've got free won't. So we can stop those reaction patterns, and rather than create a new one eventually will arise, because your inner system will know what you want. So it's not a case of we haven't got free will, but we can stop something that is no longer serving us. It served us in the past, but it's not really serving us anymore.
Yeah, you don't have a free will as far as where your life is going, what your life is about, and where it's going. You know, that's your unconscious mind that has created you and set out your path in life. What we can do and where we have a choice is in our conscious mind. So when we're talking about human society and human ruling, then there is a choice, but it is a multiple choice. It is not a completely free choice, because you have to adhere to your human surroundings. Yeah, the natural world, you already do that because you're created within that natural world, and so you have a natural instinct that suits your particular life and where that life is gonna be. But society, within society, you have the choice, multiple choices. Yeah, you need to be governed, apparently. So you have the choice what type of government you would like. Yeah, you like to be governed by a dictator, by communist system, by a democratic system, by a capital system, by whatever. But those are just choices between certain things. And you can't say none of the above. None of the above is never a choice in human society, to the point where in a democratic society you can choose between various parties, various ways of thinking and what have you. But if you don't go to vote, or if you spoil your ballot paper with the idea that none of these people are representing me, none of these ideas I identify with, then your vote simply is ignored. So you can't vote on none of the above in human society. It's a multiple choice. They determine the choices, and you have the free choice. You have one more choice in life to make, and that is how important you, or how much importance you adhere and attach to your conscious mind. You have the choice to make everything rational, or you have the choice to stop it. And if you stop it, you won't die. You will create space in your being to become aware of information that was overridden by the conscious mind. That you can stop. So you push away your conscious mind, you stop analyzing, you stop thinking, you stop following your feelings and justifying everything and so on. And then you become much more aware of who you are. You know, the way you're constructed, what is important in that construction, and what that construction really needs out of life.
So in our free will and in our conscious mind, so let me just check my notes here. So it is imagination coming out of the conscious mind, because we imagine things, and is that the difference between us and AI, which is imagination? And so where does imagination come from? Is it deeper within us, or is it a conscious mind thing? And is that what really sets us apart from AI?
Okay, imagination is an expression of thinking. You can think in terms of words, or you can think in terms of pictures or images, and it can come from both. You can imagine something that you and truly, you know, in if you like, in color and depth and everything else that you've never experienced and don't know anything about consciously. So your unconscious mind could put things together for you, and therefore you could, for instance, become aware of what your future life should look like while you haven't been thinking about it, while you're continuing to live in a certain pattern, if you like, prescribed by, you know, family, education, society, and so on. So in other words, the conscious mind. And still, you become aware of images or attractions to places and sounds and smells that you've never come across in your conscious life. But that is where your inner self life is going to go. So that's imagination that comes from your unconscious mind. The imagination from your conscious mind puts things together that it already knows, but it constructs something different from it. And so that imagination is limited in its scope. There will always be something there that will attach it to possible. It's a possible reality. While the other one, when you first notice it, is totally weird, completely impossible. No? Like in dreams, we meet people that are dead long time ago. We meet people of different ages that have lived in different ages, and they're all the same age. We meet them in places that we've never been to, or that these people have never been to, and so on and so forth. Situations being created. That's your unconscious mind juggling things around, your imagination. But your conscious mind imagination is different, because that has always got a sense of possible within it. And that's the difference.
So a quick illustration there. If your life is not really going in touch with your deep inner life path, your unconscious mind can bring this into this imagination. Maybe it's a feeling of wanting, a lot of people have a feeling of wanting the warmth of the sun, especially living in England. So you have these feelings of a want to live in warmth, of a slow pace of life, of spending time walking, and these feelings come up of simple things from the deep unconscious. But and that could maybe to get you off the life path that you're on. But then if you were to go to that place and manifest that, you would use your conscious imagination to actually, all right, the deep imagination, say you wanted a cottage in a village somewhere in a sunny climate, but then you use your conscious imagination to go in there and imagine and create that and put the walls there and the beams there. So is that a good illustration of your unconscious and conscious imagination working together?
Working opposite each other, because very often when you do it that way, it won't actually survive. There is another way of creating the dream of your unconsciousness, if I may put it that way. And that is, in your story, one, I become aware of an inner need, if you like. And two, I start to realize how important that is. And three, I'm now going to try and realize that. Yeah, there is another way. One, I become aware of an inner need. Two, I realize the importance of it, but I'm never going to do anything with it. Because number three is, I let the dream come to me. In other words, I'm not going to go out and look for that cottage. I'm continuing my life, but I keep my mind open. So in other words, I allow that imagination to flow through my mind time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. And what is happening is that it is basically condensing the energies to what? To that, if that is what is going to happen, that particular cottage. Because your conscious interpretation on the way may have got it wrong. You know, you may have added through your conscious mind something that wasn't there in the first place. Let's just say, you know, nice little cottage in a small village by the coast. Why? Because I like the coast. I like the sea, you know, fine. But what that last bit may be an addition of your conscious mind. And you may end up, if you allow it just to grow from inside, bit by bit, without doing it, and you allow the cottage to come to you, you may find out that you get to a nice little cottage in a small, quiet village up in the mountains.
Yeah, I think I'll put a link below to a little book we wrote called The Conscious Humanity. And I think you've summed it up there, because people talk a lot about the power of the mind and the law of attraction. And I struggled with that because it's not been very well explained, and you have to have a lot of scientific understanding. But what I call the law of awareness is just being aware that there's a lot of opportunities in your environment, and just allow your inner self to guide you to them. It's not necessarily that you attract them in, like you said, then you're reducing the options, but try not to force it. Yeah. And it's quite a difficult balance. It's a very difficult balance, but it just means to become aware of what's in your environment and the opportunities. There's a lot more there, and this thing is getting in the way, so you're not seeing it.
Isn't it amazing? People keep saying, oh, anything is possible. And as soon as you mention something, they go, oh no, I don't have the money for that. Oh no, I could never leave this. Oh no, I could never do without that. You know, well, if you do it that way, then really nothing is possible, because your conscious mind is not allowing the possibility that is right for you to come through. if you really say to yourself, anything is possible, then go and sit back and watch the dream manifest itself in front of your eyes. The only thing you have to do is when it's there, you need to step in. You need to just dare to take that step and go, this is just presented to me. It really has all the features or the main features of my dream. So now I just step into my dream. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And I think you have to be well in tune with your intuition and your deep feelings when that opportunity arises, and not get confused with your conscious mind.
Yeah.
I think. Another interesting bit was, I'm not sure how we are for time. We've got enough for this question anyway. The role of language in the development of consciousness. So as humans, we have this constant monkey voice, people call it. We're constantly talking to ourselves. And obviously it's in the language that we know. I'm quite lucky now. If we ever move to Spain, I actually can think in 2 languages now. So I think that's a good sign when you're learning another language, that you can actually think in the other language. But the development of language for human consciousness, I'm presuming that's a really important factor. Is that on the knowledge side, the understanding side? Where does language play the importance of consciousness?
The language part is an early step into the conscious mind, and it's built on, or it takes as its roots sound. Animals communicate to each other with sound. Yeah, it's not about a language. It's making a sound in a certain situation that gives it a certain meaning, if you like. Language condenses that possibility into words and sentences, very nicely organized. Yeah, so it's a condensation of sounds. And then we put meaning to it. But the truth is that if you go to a foreign country where you don't speak the language, and if you're open to it, and you meet somebody else who's open to it, you don't speak each other's language, but you can communicate quite happily and sufficiently with each other, right? You're not going to have a big discussion over politics or whatever, but about life things, it's very easy to communicate. It's very easy to let somebody know that you're hungry. It's very easy to let somebody know that you're cold. You're making sounds and they know what that means. And we tend to, when we're making that sound, to use words from our own language in that. But we don't need to. You could use any sound you like, or any word that you like from any language, because he doesn't understand your word anyway. And that's not it. Our dog understands 4 languages, because as far as I can see, this dog responds just as well to me speaking English, my wife speaking Dutch, the Spanish visitor speaking Spanish. Oh, the French carpenter that comes here speaks French. And the dog responds to all of that in exactly the same way. He knows what they're saying. The sound is much more important than language. But of course, if you want to control humans and you want to put barriers between certain humans, interpretation of sounds is a good way of separating them. Oh, I don't know what you're saying, so now I'm stuck. Yeah? No, just go with sounds and feelings, open yourself up, and you can communicate. It's a good It's a good exercise, really is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've mentioned before in these conversations, I've become a bit obsessed with listening to Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. And he says the way you communicate as a pack leader to a dog is just calm, assertive energy. The words are irrelevant.
Yeah.
And he mentioned when you want a dog to know you're serious, he said, just remember how your grandmother never shouted at you, but really turned around and looked sternly when she'd had enough. He said, that's the look you give the dog, and the dog means, right, you mean business.
Yeah.
And there's no communication verbal at all.
No.
They just know this stuff. It's just something that's popped into my mind then, and I'm not a religious person, but when people, I think these things in the Bible, should we say, that can be quite relevant, and the story of the Tower of Babel and all the languages and how it actually divided humanity. Yeah. Now, maybe that's just a story, but we can use these stories to create illustration. And what you just said there, all these languages, which could be great and a great part of culture, have actually divided us. But if we go back to our natural selves, we can still communicate via energies.
Quite easily, and much better, because it's much clearer in what we're saying. If you now listen to the words, people on television, social media, anywhere, you know, I don't know what people are saying anymore, because they're using words, but I don't know what they mean with those words when they use those words. You know, everybody thinks that they know what they're meaning. Everybody thinks that if they use words, I mean, I'm going to keep it simple. What are hormones? What are vitamins? You know, what is health? I don't know what you mean. What do you mean when somebody said, oh, it touches my soul? Where did it touch you? What is that? I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you're saying. So the more words we use, the more we divide. If we would just sit down together, I mean, the truth is, and this is known throughout the ancient world, and it's written in all the ancient wisdom scripts. If you want to solve the problems in yourself and with your surroundings, with other people, the only thing you have to do is sit and shut up. If you sit in silence, there's no further problem. From the moment you start using words, you're divided again.
Yeah. I know, I'm just checking the time. I think we're running out now. You've got the clock there. But this will actually follow on for next week, because there's still more to go on this subject regarding freedom and society. So it's going to kind of overflow next week. And there's another saying, some people talk, that person seems to be talking a lot, but not really saying much. And that's kind of typical of where language has got us, really. So we'll leave it there for tonight, because I think we're running short of time. But we'll definitely follow on next week with freedom and society, and there's a few things we can bring into that.
And look at how many words we've already used.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay.